you're tuning in for our shark feeding today. Happy Earth Day. It's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and so I'm celebrating by wearing my favorite animal, and it helps that I'm feeding the sharks today. If you tuned in yesterday at 11 o'clock, you helped me prepare their diets. So here's the food that I'm going to give them today. And first I'm going to start out with this squid. In this squid, I'm going to stuff this gel in there, which is very nutritious for them. And also these vitamins. This is a shark and ray tab that is specialized for elasmobranchs. And this is an iron vitamin. So I want to make sure both sharks get one of each. And this is squid. I'm going to shove the food or the gel and their vitamins in the tube. Squid acts as kind of like a pill pocket to make sure the pills stay put and that they can eat them. So our sharks already know we're up here. They're getting kind of amped up right now. So let's see if I can feed one of them. All right, here's one. Nice. Time for the other shark. So we have two Sandbar sharks. They're juveniles. They're about 3 to 4 years old.
How do you tell which shark has eaten and which hasn't?
You kind of just have to keep track of them. They both look very similar, but one is slightly larger and one is more aggressive, so you can tell by their personality of who keeps coming around and who you need to look for. All right, see if we can get the other one. So both of our sharks are female. This is some herring I'm going to give them. And you can tell the difference between male and female sharks because males have these two appendages on their belly called claspers, and females do not have that. Got a question?
Yeah, Brad asks, how long can they be underwater until they have to come up for air?
They are always underwater. Sharks are fish, so they have gills instead of lungs, so they get their oxygen through the water, not the air.
Liam wants to know how many teeth they have.
They have a lot of teeth. As to how many they have in their mouth at one time, I'm not too sure because they have multiple rows of teeth and they are constantly shedding their teeth.
So to answer that, Liam, they actually have an unlimited amount of teeth.
And this is some capelin that I'm giving them. Try to get the other shark because this one likes to just hang around and try to eat all the food, where our other shark is slightly more timid.
Why do they need medicine?
We try to match their diet as best we can, but unfortunately we can't feed them live food. So we give them supplements to supplement what would be in a live fish. So more iron, and sharks need slightly more iodine than you would think.
How big could these sharks theoretically get if they get unlimited food?
Let's see. Females grow to be about 7 to 8 feet long, and males are slightly smaller. They grow to be about just 6 feet.
Do the sharks ever eat other fish in the tank?
It has happened, but it does not happen regularly because our sharks are very well fed, and also the fish in this tank are pretty big for them to eat. I don't know if it'd be hard for them to take one of these guys down, but it has happened. They do take bites, but it's not a regular occurrence.
How long do they usually live in the wild versus captivity?
They can live about 35 to 40 years old, and that's in the wild. In captivity, I'm sure it's slightly longer.
Elijah wants to know how often they eat.
They are fed. They are fed about 5 times a week, and 4 of those 5 times are fed through a broadcast feeding, where it's a free-for-all and we do not regulate how much they get. They get fed targetly once a week is what we're doing today, where we get to regulate how much food they get, what food they get, and make sure they get their vitamins.
Do they swim while sleeping?
Sharks do not actually sleep. This species of shark needs to constantly be moving to push water over its gills to get oxygen, where there's some species of shark that are able to stay still but keep breathing. That would be like a nurse shark. They're able to physically pump water over their gills, but they don't actually sleep. They go in more of a restful state sometimes.
We have Odd and Hopper says that her favorite shark are goblin sharks, though I'm quite big on Greenland sharks. So what's your favorite shark, Alexis?
My favorite shark is a white shark, and I know it's kind of cliche, but I've done research with them and they're just awesome. Greenland shark and goblin sharks are both awesome sharks as well.
What do they eat?
What do these sharks eat?
Yeah.
They might primarily prey on smaller fish, crabs, and rays.
Where will these sharks go after they get too big for this tank? From Kelly.
These sharks will be released, and they'll probably be released this summer. They're getting a little too big. They're about 4 feet in length. We released them at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. They were caught in the Chesapeake Bay because that is a sandbar shark nursery.
How many bones do they have?
They actually technically don't have bones. Their skeleton is made up of what we call cartilage. They're cartilaginous fish. So their skeleton is very bendy, which makes them very flexible.
Jude asks, what type of habitats do they live in?
This species of shark is a coastal shark, which means they live near shore. They can be found in estuaries, along the beach.
Are the tweezers used to regulate the food between the sharks? Oh.
No, the tweezers are really just my method of feeding them, so I do not get close to their mouths, and so I don't have to. Preventative measures for not getting bit.
Annabelle asked, how much do they weigh?
I am not too sure on how much they weigh. If you want to.
I actually don't really know. We don't weigh them. We just kind of measure how long they are and see. We don't want to take them out of the water to do any unnecessary measurements. We can just kind of see how long they get. And we can kind of estimate how much they would weigh based on their length, but we don't really do that. Could a sandbar shark eat a human if you lay completely still on the ground and let them eat you? No, I'm going to answer that no. Sandbar sharks are completely docile to people. They're probably your most popular aquarium shark. You're going to see them in aquariums all over. They're extremely I mean, these guys look amped up now because we're feeding, but we actually do dive in this tank every week to clean and stuff, and they don't bother at all. They're very docile, very slow growing, very cool animals, and I don't know that anyone in history has been attacked by a sandbar shark.
They could care less about you.
Do they have a favorite food?
I don't know what their favorite food would be. They kind of love everything we give them. But at one point in time, one of our sandbar sharks was really into sushi grade tuna, and that's the only thing she would eat for about a month.
How do you make sure each shark gets enough food? Patience.
We try to regulate. We prepare their food, and half of it's for one shark and half of it's for the other shark. So we really try to regulate who gets what.
Would they have a baby or baby fish or shark?
So sharks in general do all kinds of birth. These guys give live birth. So the eggs or the babies develop in the mom. She can have about 8 pups at a time, and they take about a year to develop to give birth. And it's live birth, and once they're born, they're kind of on their own.
But these sharks are not sexually mature for another several years, so they will not actually have babies before we let them go.
Our sharks are about, I think, 3 to 4, and females sexually mature around the age 13.
How long is their lifespan?
They live around 35 to 40 years in the wild.
Do these sharks swim in other tanks?
Here they just live in this tank, but they are a popular aquarium fish, so you can probably find them in different types of aquariums and other places.
How did you find them? From Chris Hanna.
We did not catch these. Virginia Institute of Marine Science caught these, and we are keeping them for a few years to grow them up, and then they're going to be released.
How often do they get fed? This person came in late.
The sharks eat about 5 times a week, and one of those times is what we're doing today. They're being target fed, so we get to regulate what food they're getting and how much, and to make sure they get their vitamins.
How big do they get from Madeline, age 7?
The females grow slightly larger than males. The females can be about 7 to 8 feet long, where the males are about 6 feet long.
Mark Graham asks, why the feeding pole instead of just dumping food in the tank?
We actually do both. So when they eat the other 4 days a week, we do what we call a broadcast feeding, where we just throw a bunch of food in. It's kind of a free-for-all for the whole tank. And then once a week we try to target feed them.
And the targeting is basically just to kind of get them a little trained and also to get them their necessary supplements and vitamins. Do they live in groups?
They can. They're mostly solitary animals, but I have read that you can find them in sex-segregated groups. So it would be all females in one group and all males in another.
Luca, age 4, wants to know if white sharks will eat people.
They have the ability to because of their size and their power. They don't want to eat you. If they try to bite you, then they're just most likely confusing you for another type of food. But they do have the ability to.
Besides other sharks, humans, and whales, what eats sharks?
Bigger sharks will prey on smaller sharks. The biggest predator of these sharks are actually tiger sharks. So the only thing that really preys on sharks are just bigger sharks. And humans. Shark fin soup is a really popular Asian cuisine, and humans are decimating the populations of sharks because they just slice off their fins and use them for the soup and then leave the shark to die.
Yeah. How do you tell if they're a boy or a girl?
So females, if you look at their belly is completely flat. Males have what we call claspers, which are 2 appendages that will be on their belly, and that means that they're a male.
What are their names?
Their names are Coral and Finley, and y'all helped us name them last year, I believe.
What are some of the biggest threats to their natural environments, especially in the Chesapeake Bay region? From Megan.
The biggest threat they face is overfishing, because they have these huge fins that would be great for shark fin soup, but I don't recommend it. As for their habitat, they're more of a coastal fish, so they're not really affected by habitat loss, except for, the seagrasses that are being degraded and
Rory asks, how many shark species are there?
Oh.
A lot. We don't really know all of them. There are new ones being discovered every year. There are actually a lot of deep sea sharks that people don't really know about, that are deep sea in the trenches, and that's where they get new discovered ones every year.
And not all sharks are big or meat eating. Some sharks are really small, like the dogfish sharks we have here, the chain cat sharks, or like a whale shark. It's just a filter feeder. It doesn't prey on small fish or other stuff.
Elias, age 9, wants to know, what's the smallest shark?
That I do not know. I would assume it is a species of dogfish. Do you have any idea?
I don't really. I would get some kind of bamboo shark or something. I know that our chain dogfish sharks are pretty small, especially as juveniles. The adults only get about just over a foot long, so maybe about 13 to 15 inches long, which is pretty small for a shark. Do they get the food? Oh, nope. Never mind. That's a weird question. How long do sharks live?
That varies between species. Some live for hundreds of years, like the Greenland shark. Oldest one they found was like 400 years old. These sandbar sharks live about 35 to 40 years.
And how many babies will they have?
A female shark can carry around 8 pups. That's the average, and they carry them for about a year before they give live birth.
At what age can the sharks leave their mother? When y'all get more and capture them, is there an age that you cannot have them, or does that not matter?
So there really is not much parental care. Once they have live birth, they're kind of on their own to fend for themselves. They're natural born predators. They don't really have a problem with this. What was the other part of the question?
Sorry, I gotta go back and find it. When we get more and capture them, is there an age that you cannot have them, or does that matter? We try and keep them fairly small, so we'll catch them, or rather receive them at between 2 and 3 years of age, so that they're young enough for us to teach them to feed off of live food, small enough to not be too aggressive or large for this tank, and then we can have them for longer. We generally keep them between 2 and 3 years, sometimes 4 years, before we release them again. Will they eat a giant squid? From our bacon, age 11.
I would assume not, considering these guys do not get overly big. But if there was a giant squid that was dead, they'll probably congregate in groups and go at it. Many fish would go at that.
These are some really great questions, guys. We got one last one before we wrap it up. What's the biggest shark?
So I have 2 answers for this. The biggest predatory shark would be the great white shark. It says it in the name, they're great, they're huge. But the biggest shark would be the whale shark, and that's also properly named because they're the size of a whale. But they are filter feeders, so not anything that's going to prey upon you.
And how intelligent are they?
Very.
Maybe most people think of sharks as being kind of dumb or whatever, but they're actually very smart. These sandbar sharks in particular are easy to train, really get used to their environment. They're not stupid at all.
I feel like they can tell time. They know when it's time to eat.
They have a really good internal clock. They know exactly when it's time to eat. They can hear really well, see really well. They can smell their environment really well, and they're just a really smart, cool animal that doesn't get enough credit in the world. But we're gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you guys all so much for your questions. We really appreciate you coming by. Looks like our sharks kind of are slowing down a bit too. Had enough of feeding for today. So these are our 2 sandbar sharks, Coral and Finley, saying happy Earth Day, happy 50th Earth Day, and join us again this afternoon where we will be looking at some otters at 2:30 today. So see you guys this afternoon.